My wish is for you to help a strong, sustainable movement to educate every child about food, to inspire families to cook again, and to empower people everywhere to fight obesity.
And now, Jamie. How you doing?
Hello. Hello. Quite a lot of you, isn't there?
It's not bad, right?
Wow. You said have a little chat in cans.
3,000. So, Jamie, how have you forged your brand since The Naked Chef? How have you created a movement? How have you inspired the community?
I think, first of all, like, even referring to myself as a brand has sort of taken me 10 years to kind of get my head around that one. I mean, I didn't start thinking about it until very recently. I mean, ultimately, I grew up in a little village, and I grew up in a family business. I grew up in a pub, and I know there's a lot of international people here, but a pub, for me, is the most democratic place in the world. Everyone goes there, rich, poor, old, young, gypsies, farmers, you name it, they go to the pub, and I lived above there. And I just fell in love with people. I just thought that village, community, people was a beautiful thing. I became a chef, but for me personally, I think being consistent, I mean, the work that I've done hasn't changed in 17 years. The Naked Chef was, did anyone remember The Naked Chef? It was kind of a long time ago. It was 17 years ago. And the mantra has been the same. So I think what I've learned is there's real strength in consistency, relentlessness, and just because you're saying the same thing or like trying to inspire the same emotions, you can still dress it up differently every year, every month, every day, but the message is always the same.
But you've learned deeply from your community. I mean,
massively.
You, for example, told me this morning about how you've even altered your media product because guys have a different kind of attention span than women.
Well, I mean, if I may, I mean, the thing is, the world's changed in 17 years. When The Naked Chef started, you know, cooking was for girls. And even though women were going to work and men were going to work and they were both pulling a long day, they would get home at the end of the day and look at each other, and all the men around the country would go, "What's for dinner?" And, you know, the transition that I had to do was one from cooking was for girls to cooking could get you girls. Yes, mother. And you know that that's an incentive, yeah? So I think, you know, we always need aspiration. We always need a carrot. And I think it was one of two. It was empowerment for the women to get the boys going. The boys should, you know, home ec or teaching food was always for girls at school. I never had it. But I think as I started learning from my audience, I mean, it's very interesting, like, across all my traditional editorial kind of expressions, you know, jo.com, you know, magazines, books, you know, it's skewing 70% women. But actually on YouTube, it's sort of skewing 61% men. And they're very different. They're very, very different. Like, men don't, like, women are happy to know me and sort of be part of their lives, and we've had a long relationship, and if I do my job and give you accurate recipes that work and that are really tested, you know, that'll be a long sort of relationship together. Men, they don't really like me too much, you know, they want to just do the quick guide. They don't really want to read the instruction book. So we started to realize on FoodTube that our whole industry was always geared up to plate the dish up at the end. You know, that final moment when the dish was incredible. And the men weren't watching it. They didn't want to get to the end because they just wanted to know how to do it. So I had to restructure how we make content, and we put the ending at the beginning now, just so that the men know what they're doing, because otherwise they don't. But this is a change, and I think more importantly, like, I'd had 15 years of doing my best at having a conversation, but the reality was we never got feedback. The rating system never fed back. The only way I could feed back to the public was book signings, demonstrations, and talking. And I tried really hard, but the power of digital is that every day it's a conversation. So for us, it was kind of like, well, how can we make incredible content? What does the future look like? How can we make amazing food content that is truly amazing and shocking and beautiful? And how do we fund that?